Welcome once again. I'm Charlie Greenberg, your host and moderator for Digital Business Demos. This is a series where we provide live business demos that focus on different digital transformation and platform strategies, and in particular demonstrate different components and products within Software AG's digital business platform. In fact, we're going to see a large representation of the digital business platform capabilities in today's use case presentation, and in just a moment, we'll be joined by our presenter and demoer, Sami Morkos, who is Software AG's Chief Solutions Architect. And rapid development of new applications is a major reason why Software AG is rated as a customer-centric leader in many innovative and digital technology categories. Additionally, we have more than 4,300 employees, $1 billion in annual revenue, and we can cite over 70% of the global 1,000 as customers. And those customers include well over 2 million developers at leading organizations who have adopted Software AG products to innovate solutions and build applications cross-industry, cross-private and public sectors, and who rely on Software AG to help complete their journeys as digital enterprises by using the end-to-end capabilities of the digital business platform. Also, please keep in mind that following today's presentation, we will provide a Q&A session. So as usual, please use the WebEx Q&A box at the bottom right-hand side of your screen at any point in time during our presentation for any questions and comments. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Sami Morkos.
Thank you, Charlie. So the focus of this session is on building business solutions, especially focused on systems of differentiation and systems of innovation. Before going further, I just want to check, can you hear me okay, Charlie, from your side?
You sound great.
All right, thank you. So the format is going to be mostly a demo, but just before we plunge into the demo specifically, I want to just briefly enumerate what we're going to do today, what we're going to cover together. So if you look at this list, the first I want to just briefly make some general remarks about our platform, our DBP for short, which is Digital Business Platform. And then once I especially emphasize the role it plays in building business solutions. And then from there, we're going to go into the demo. That's where we're going to spend most of our time. What you will see after the first bullet is the list of capabilities that we're going to see in the demo. So we're going to see quite a bit, and I've categorized them. And obviously, we have drawn from those capabilities that play and are often leveraged into building innovative systems. So I'm not going to bore us with the list here. I'd rather we go through all of it, during the demo. Maybe a little ambitious from a time perspective, but I expect to cover just about all of them. Maybe the last one or two, I may end up in being a little brief. So for those not familiar with the Digital Business Platform, this is a pictorial view, a 10,000 view. The Digital Business Platform, think of it as a group of capabilities. And with it, you can build diverse systems. These could be business solutions. They could be analytics-centric. They could be device-centric, IoT-centric. They could be solutions used by businesses, and we've seen it quite a bit in recent years around business transformation. And what you're seeing here is categories, genres, classes of solutions. Now, to make it more meaningful, if you lift the hood a little bit, what you're going to see in these blue boxes, we call these the specific capabilities. And I want to make, and it looks like a busy slide, so I'm not going to necessarily parse through these. We're going to see, again, much of this session, quite a number of these coming into play, leveraged together to creatively solve a problem. But just, I want to highlight a few attributes about this platform, these capabilities. So, and especially, I'm going to just make remarks that are germane to building, designing, deploying, and scaling business solutions, especially those that are what we refer to as differentiating business solutions. So first of all, these capabilities we visually saw a moment ago, these are loosely coupled yet highly integrated. And what we mean by that, loosely coupled, means you can take any individual capability and leverage it. In fact, it's possible to take one or two alone and build a solution with them. Loosely coupled means it is very common that a customer of ours may have an existing equivalent capability. So we work with customers every day that they may say, for example, I have my own dashboarding tool, or I may have a messaging layer that so any piece of goodness that the customer has, we're going to respect it, we're going to coexist with it, and we'll interoperate with it using standards like APIs, as an example. So the concept of rip and replace is totally antithetical to our philosophy. Yet, when we say highly integrated, that means when a customer of ours uses several capabilities together, you get several advantages. Not only are these seamlessly integrated, you don't have to work sometimes at the low level, at the interface level. We give out-of-the-box capabilities through drag and drop. And the technology recognizes I'm using capability A and B and C, and you could get benefits not just to speed the development using drag and drop, but at runtime, there are a number of capabilities where we offer a lot extra beyond what happens by interfacing. So there's advantage in using plurality of these, and the demo obviously will highlight a number of them. And as we said, this platform is very suitable, strong in enabling business-focused apps. These are not the only ones. We've seen customers who work with low-level applications sometimes to do plumbing and integration and API and memory-based sometimes, but the theme of this session is building business solutions, and specifically those that can help me in my unique business differentiate myself, take advantage of some of the recent new technologies that have come to the market. Distinct, hopefully obvious to us from ERP, what we bring is a platform. The platform allows us to assemble and customize versus me buying an ERP, like an SAP or an Oracle apps or a commercial off-the-shelf COTS solution. And as we know, ERPs do not give me a competitive, a differentiated advantage. Everyone in my neighborhood has SAP, so there's not much advantage. And even if I do customization with it, that encumbers me with a burden of any time there's an upgrade, there's a severe cost. And of course, we like to emphasize it is much faster to assemble solutions with it than to craft it using Java or C, C++ programming language. The name of the game, this is one of the biggest demands. We're seeing a lot of trends built around it, is the need to build solutions faster. And I want to borrow from a phrase that Gartner coined called the bimodal IT. Bimodal IT means two modes of IT. And we're seeing these, and I want to just basically emphasize that our platform is one platform that allows our customers to work in mode 1 and mode 2. That's what bimodal. And mode 1, as we know, is the more IT-centric, more traditional, more thorough. The mode 2 is words like citizen development. Non-geeky IT can assemble, use UIs to build apps much faster. And that's born out of the need of we cannot afford to go through traditional approaches, spend 8 months before we release a new solution that's competitive. So we need to be fast, hence the ability to support two modes. And with this, let's shift into the demo. And I'll just touch briefly. I tried to group, and you will see it here in this list or this agenda slide. When you build systems of innovation, most often, in fact, there's a common name, almost synonymous, referred to as systems of engagement. They engage users. So my systems of records sit in the background. They may own certain records that represent an asset in my business, but attributes is user-centric, user-facing that is common. So we're going to see quite a number of capabilities come into play. Clearly, UIs, mobile, case management. You're going to see things like robotic process automation, human workflow. We look into natural language processing. These are all capabilities that come with the platform, and we'll continue to see more as we go. This is not 100% the flow of the demo. I'm going to state what the use case is, and we're going to flow through it. But at least this is a grouping, yet we're going to see a flow that somewhat follows this. So with this in mind, in fact, I have one slide out of boredom. The demo, we built it around a realistic use case that we did for a large financial institution a few years ago. And of course, we took few creative liberty to show new technologies. This is again the diagram we showed earlier, we call the capability map. The demo actually includes and leverages every one of these boxes or capabilities that are highlighted in green. I think we'll show most of them. Some of them I may not get deep into. And so again, one last thought I want to leave us with is warning. There's a lot we're going to see, yet the demo is very simple. I think my mom can understand it in concept. And all the buzzwords and the capabilities, think of them as this is a toolbox available under my fingerprints, under my fingers, and I could start assembling these capabilities at the end to solve a problem. And through solving the problem, I can achieve best outcome for customers, for my business, for my process, even for my partners. So with this, let's shift gears. And I think I expired. Bear with me for 1 second. All right. So let me briefly introduce the use case or the demo scenario. So the demo scenario is about loan application, loan origination. So I think most of us understand what it means to take a loan for a house called mortgage, or it could be for a car or for a student loan. And basically it starts with an application. Application can come through multiple channels. If you look at this diagram, by the way, is in our development tool. It's a pictorial definition of a process. It's a structured process. We'll come back to it later. But I just want to leave us at this level point that a loan goes through 3 simple stages. You will see 3 swim lanes. And for now, just think about it starts with an application. This is where an applicant fills an application and submits a loan. We're going to see later in the demo that we can come through multiple channels. Those who work with retail think omni-channels. Once a loan is submitted, then it goes through this swim lane. For the most part, it's handled by a CSR, a customer service rep. And basically, the rep is somebody in our business or in our network that makes sure that all the necessary information is there for the loan. And then the third stage is simply the underwriting. Fancy words, anybody who works with finance understands underwriting is basically they want to assess the risk. Is Sammy somebody I can give him a loan? Or if he has a little bit of risk, maybe I want to change the terms to at least cover for the risk. So a whole array of capabilities we're going to see. Capabilities such as intelligence, machine learning, decisions based on machine learning decisions or based on inferencing engine, and so on. So we're going to see an array of capabilities. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a brief journey. This is the first journey we're going to take in this demo. I like to think of it as a micro-level journey, meaning a single applicant applies for a loan, and then we're going to traverse through all the steps the loan goes through as it's touched by different stakeholders, different apps that we interact with. By the way, just one note, you will notice this at a high level is a process. And the solution that we have here happens to be a process-centric. But with DBP, not every solution you build that can use different capabilities have to have this process capability. The second thing I want to suggest is at this high level, we happen to have a structured process, but yet we're going to emphasize some dynamicism, capabilities that are truly differentiated to our platform. And the analysts, some of the key analysts like Gartner have told us that we're going to see that allows us to breathe more life into this. There's dynamicism throughout the process. So with this in mind, let's go in and submit a loan. And let me just take one look. Okay, so let's start with an applicant. And what we're looking at here, the user interface. This user interface allows an applicant coming in through a mobile device or going through a web app to submit a loan. And just to save some time, we're going to click on a button. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry, I had some noise, background noise. So I'm going to push a button here that populates the data for me. And I'm not getting any response. Looks like my browser is dead. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to just start the browser one more time. All right, I'm getting more response. All right, so I just push a button, fill in the data to save us some time, and I'm going to pick a random name from the attendees. So I'm going to pick Tina Jones, and we're going to submit a loan request. You'll notice some data elements, red indicates they're required. So I'm going to say the loan type is a house mortgage, and I'm going to select a fixed rate loan. And you can change data here. Just a thought on this UI. A UI is one way to interact with the customer. This is built with our technology. We offer two modes of building UI. One of them is IT-centric, and you can use any framework of choice from a UI, AngularJS to build this UI, or you can build the user interface using what we call citizen development. And I'll show it to us in a few minutes. Not only that, we give an option where you can build something in citizen development, and then the IT person can take it and start customizing it down to the pixel level. It still becomes an IT-centric development. And you will notice here, this is a responsive, uses responsive design. So just before submitting it, I'll show you. So for example, Tina, let's say she lives in New York. Watch what happens if I change the city into New York. New York, you will see the diagram changes. And we've pre-populated data that we're going to use for assessment of risk. And I simply from here submit the loan. And once I submit the loan, I'm going to. So now we submitted a new loan for Tina Jones. And you will see in my dashboard, or I could look at. So right now, in fact, I'm going to go back. And we're going to traverse through the loan. So basically, we had an applicant fill in a loan application, submit it. This simply launches a process. If everything works well, this should come into some CSR's inbox. By the way, the inbox is available as mobile, and we're going to highlight that a little later. But right now, it goes into this step. And we're going to see it in a minute. I just want to highlight that this step could be interacting through API with any backend system, such as a CRM. Could be interacting with a mainframe, where a CSR sees it pop on his mainframe or his inbox and work on it. Just for show's sake, what's behind the scenes, we chose to build an entire CRM using our Agile Apps capability that allows me to take any app that tracks, manages, reports, orchestrates activities, and I'm going to show it to us right now. So this is the Agile apps. When I clicked on my inbox, showing me all the new loans that came in today, we're going to see an application that came in just a few moments ago, requesting a house mortgage for a place in New York, and the name is Tina. And when I click on it, we're going to see a UI. Everything we're seeing here is built using what we call citizen development. I do like to emphasize this. In fact, this application, and for time I won't go into it, this allows me to look, manage, track, update. We're going to see a number of activities I'll do here. It provides reports, some out-of-the-box reports, as well as you could build reports all using wizards. You could have dashboards. So this shows me in real time dashboard showing me metrics. So you could see Tina at the top of the dashboard. Everything built in citizen development. Outside the scope of this session, I often, when I get into this, I like to lift the hood and show you what it means in a codeless way for a non-geek to make changes, add business rules, change UIs, add new data elements on the screen. But I just want to plant the bug in our back of our mind. You can build entire applications extremely rapidly with these and deploy them. So just, and because this was built with Agile apps, just another sidebar. And before I actually give my sidebar, another warning I want to say, as I go through this journey of the demo to apply the loan and process the loan, I will be stopping. I'll be interrupting myself probably rudely sometime. And the purpose is, even though we're walking through a business scenario, I'll be interrupting and just reminding us as girls that this is a capability we're going to see next, and I want to emphasize it. These are the list items we told you you're going to see them in action. But we happen here to be using also what's called case management. It's an option where the application I build, it lets me track and manage, but it does quite a number of more things. And I just want to briefly touch on it. More things could be like I could on the fly create things like ad hoc tasks made up of one or multiple steps. So I could go to my boss or a team of people and say, can you review it? And I could put on the spot SLAs. I can have things like processes that I could launch at my fingertips if I want. So if I click here, you will notice there are some existing processes that I could trigger them if I want. I could do other activities. So, and as we work on this case, this is also innate or expected when you deal with case management. Think of a case as you have a yellow manila folder. Any person that touches, makes a change, adds an attachment, interacts with Twitter associated with this case, everything is contained and we will be there for reference. And these are capabilities totally out of the box. We can turn them off. So that's case management. Now you will notice when I look at this case, I have the information about Tina. We know she requested a house mortgage. We have other information. We said this New York is the address. So you see these tabs. Think of them as sections of data. And let me be nosy here, see what she has for banking. So she has some balance in her bank account. You will notice some of these pages are empty, like driver's license. I don't have any information. So I'm a CSR right now. I'm a new persona. And I need to get some information about her driver's license. I'd like to get information about her W-2 form. By the way, the reason you see a lot of data here is, as I said, this is based on real scenario we did, and a lot of these data elements are common. So this is data that's missing. I like to key it in. So what I'm going to shift gears next, I'm going to talk about, we're going to see robotics process automation. And I'll introduce it, but the use case here is we've automated this user interface, and there are business rules in play behind the scenes. So it's meaningful. I could send an email. By the way, here's an attribute where I could interact with her through email, send her notes, get responses, get attachments from her, and tell her I need your driver's license, and fill in the data manually. But we're going to have the robot help us with that. So think of it. So my brief remark on robotic process automation. Let's think about it as yet another layer of the onion. You can leverage it. In fact, we can use it totally standalone. It does not have to use, notice I told you this is a user interface that happened to have been built using our Agile apps, and it's running in a browser. This could have been any application. It could have been even running in a green screen. We don't care what the browser it's running in. We can build robotics script process automation through recording. Think of it as it takes automation to another level. And what RPA does, it automates the user interaction with the at the UI level. It automates rather my interactions, the human interactions with the user interface. So typical activities that are mundane, time-consuming. So think of it here, looking at the driver's license and starting to swivel and keying it in, or cutting it and pasting it from a text piece that she sent me or an email takes time. That's time-consuming. Mundane, clerical type activities, these often require moving between different screens, pulling, converting dates. We're going to let the robot handle it. We're going to see it next. Let me just inject, and I'm giving us a teeny little snippet about a subject that is very hot now, and there's a lot to it. But just, I want to make a remark also. Our RPA lets me operate in attended mode and non-attended mode. Attended mode means the robot is interacting with me and guiding me, but potentially asking me for making decisions and making judgments. That's the one I'm going to show. But I could have robots in the background, one or many, basically triggered by different types of triggers, wake up and start doing all the work, populating data, opening screens, moving the data, updating, moving it back into an Excel, taking it from things like PDFs. I could do it totally unattended. That's unattended mode. And in fact, we support a hybrid, a combination of both of them. So let's start by, I'm going to go in and say, let's say the customer sent me by email the driver's license. So I'm going to, this is, by the way, a little click that lets me do attachments. This is all part of case management out of the box. So I'm going to go in and I have some images sent. I'll see here a driver's license. Sorry, Tina, let's save this one. If I look at it, doesn't exactly look like it, Tina, but that's okay for our demo purposes. Let's add one more file. And we're going to add the W2 form because we're going to pull data from this robot. I'm going to save it. And you could see, by the way, the list of activities, all the things that were touched. We added 2 files. I could open them. They're all part of my case, if you will, the CSR case, completing the data. So right now, I'm going to start my robot. And I'm not going to touch the keyboard. You're going to see the robot literally click, open the screen, click on the driver's license, and believe me, I'm not touching the keyboard. And it's pulling data, and notice the age, what he's going to do. So basically, we're pulling data from PDF forms. You notice here, he told me he could have pushed the save button, but he's configured to just give me the option to make that judgment. But if I go back, you could see the information he did. You'll notice here, he looked at the age, that's a date on the driver's license, and from it calculated it. So behind the screens, once you record the robot, which is very easy to do, and by the way, robotics are designed where you don't need to have any programming skills like Java or C. You do recording, then you start externalizing all the variables in it. And in this case, I use the rule that basically takes an age or a date and calculates the age. You can do validations, you could do other things. He entered W2 information, and once I'm happy, I save it. So for right now, that's all we'll cover on robotics. Again, we saw an unattended mode. We saw the robot pulling data from a couple of documents, and he keyed them in for me. And again, from a business perspective, think I'm a CSR. And I could have been with Tina on the phone, and I'd like to show her attention. I should show her, if you will, love over the phone versus sitting down and making sure I don't have to worry about calculating her age or asking her. Let the robot do that. So this covers robotics. So right now, the next thing I'm going to do as a CSR, I'm going to declare that all the information for Tina is ready. Once I am, I'm going to click change the state of this case to be basically let it continue through the process. So right now, let's continue, if you will, tracking the loan for Tina. So I'm going to log in. This is, by the way, a UI. We call it Business Console. It is ready, available to use out of the box. It is also available as a mobile device, so you could download it from your mobile apps for free, yet you can customize it. And in fact, if I click on these icons, you could see how it will look on my phone. And anytime I use capabilities within our platform, such as process automation, or case management, or human workflow task, this is available for me. Since we launched the process, I'm going to click on the process tab. By the way, there's a lot more capabilities. I'll touch on some of them later on. So I clicked on a process tab. This is a UI available out of the box for me. I can customize it actually through wizards, and you will see a list of loan requests on this UI. So I could search by saying, show me, so I could search by things like name. I could say, show me loans that came from a name, applicant with the name Tina. And you'll notice the list will filter out and show me a loan for Tina Jones. It has a loan request number. It came in several minutes ago. And from here, I could, once I found it, I can drill down. Here we see another user interface. This is available out of the box. I can customize it. And let me maximize the size of it. I like to refer to this as a single view of a process, and it'll apply to any process that we deploy. So you'll notice here visually, and it has these different viewpoints related to the process, and you can control some of these. So this view, the diagram, shows me visually the steps, the loan for Tina. So you could see at the top, this is Tina Jones, this is her loan number. It shows me the steps. You will see here exactly every step that executed. If I have any alarms or alerts related to the entire process or related to a specific step or a stage. Stage, by the way, refers to something visually. You see it here. You can take grouping. By the way, a stage is a grouping of steps. You can abstract it. And by the way, the grouping can be done totally by a citizen. So you'll notice here the preparation is a group. And you could tell we've been here at the preparation sitting there for a little bit of time. I'm a little chatty here, so it's taking me time. You can click on different steps, and you will see behind the scenes data. So you could see Tina, you could see other information related. This is a fixed rate loan, and so on. Little things I want to highlight is behind the scenes, because I'm using process. Later on, I'm going to talk more about, we have an array of capabilities around analytics, especially real-time analytics and KPIs and learning, quite a bit more to be seen. But because I'm using process, we give you out-of-the-box integrated analytics with a process. So I'll show us one little manifestation. If I look at path forecasting, the tool has learned every path each process took today. So you'll notice here, it tells me you are at this step. You are waiting for somebody to check the property. And normally this is because this is a house mortgage. An appraiser, somebody who goes to the house to make an assessment, goes. And you'll notice it tells me you're at this step. It hasn't completed. And if you see the dots to the left, it tells me these are the possible paths the loan would take. So if I click on one of these paths, it will give me some forecasting information. So it's telling me, Sammy, 24% of loans today. So your chances are you may fit in this 24% of loans took this path. This is the average processing time for these loans. You are about 84% complete based on my learning and observation of loans processed today. So there are a lot of cool little nuances. Let me highlight a couple of things. Notice as an example, see this step? Remember, this is where I told us behind the scenes, we built an Agile apps, and it is loosely coupled, but we chose to, if you will, show off our technology. If I click on it, you will see the highlight. Because I built it with our Agile apps, two things happen. Remember, we talked about highly integrated. If I go to the development environment, and for today, because I'm going to cover a lot, I'm not going to lift the hood there, you will see that integrating this process with my Agile apps, because it was built, it is totally drag and drop. You tell it, this represents a human interface, push a button called case management, find out the specific Agile apps through a browser, through a click, and then once I do, I map the data coming in visually, all in our development tool called Designer. And it's done, ready. I just push a button to deploy. So at development level, it's easy, but I just want to here show us manifestation at runtime, because this was built with a capability of our technology. You will notice on this step called create, you see a little petite icon here. If you click on it, that means from here, I can drill down, and you dynamically see a user interface that was built with our Agile apps. Remember a minute ago, I showed you what a CSR sees a UI that was built with a citizen. This is exactly it. In fact, this demo, I often, if a person wants to see citizen development, I would go in and add a whole new field on the fly that captures a camera picture. I move it to one of these tabs and then come back here, and you will see this user interface dynamically renders for me. Again, this is extra benefit I get because I'm using several capabilities within our tool. So now we're done with this, as we know. I don't need to change anything, but I'm waiting on an appraiser. Here's another feature we're going to see next. Two things I just want to briefly highlight. This is an example of what we call a workflow, a human task. Think of it, if you will, those of us who've done a lot of integration with apps and partners, think of it, I'm interacting with human being. As a developer, the same tool I model this process, I will basically simply tell it this is a human workflow. And then from there, I could design the user interface, and we get a couple of options. One of the options that's now popular is an open UI. We call it open UI. But let me show you what the UI looks like. Again, because it was built with our workflow, human tasks, I click on it, and we're going to see it. Now, just a little remark. Earlier on, when we saw this Agile apps, I failed to mention anything I build with Agile apps here is available to me as a mobile app out of the box. Additionally, here I am, remember, I'm the appraiser. Because this is a workflow task, we give you the option. We have a mobile solution that allows me, if I want, I can from scratch build any mobile app, and I build it once, single code base, and then I could deploy it to multiple devices. These could be iPhones, tablets, they could be Android-based. I could further put custom hooks for a native device to take advantage of a special camera. Build it once, deploy it to many. But because we have this technology, we baked it into our BPM. So anytime you have a human workflow, two things. I can generate, without programming from scratch, what we call an inbox. So an inbox basically is what the appraiser will get on his phone. It's a native application. Actually, it's hybrid, but it will reside on his phone. He gets a list of tasks just like what I did here. And I'm not going to show you the mobile. In fact, I should have at least had it's a true native mobile app that will be on my screen. Secondly, we give you the option to make it what we call to work in an offline mode. So the effect, and because here, by the way, I am logged into this business console. Think of it, I'm a process manager. I have visibility into what the appraiser sees. That's why I drilled here. But the appraiser will see a list. It's an inbox running on his device, created with no special coding. So he will see a user interface that looks roughly like this. Not 100%, it's going to be a little more slender, a little more petite, one column instead of two. But I just want to highlight, and this is, if I have a demo one day, if some of you want to see this in action and get deeper into the mobile, we could show it to you running right on the mobile device. But for right now, time purposes, I'm going to pretend that I am the appraiser. And I look at it and I visit Tina's house that she wants to buy in New York. And one of the jobs I do is I assess it. Is this house worth buying or not worth it at all? So I'm going to score it. I think they call it LTV, loan to value. So I'm going to give it a score of 500. And I'm going to say, as an appraiser, I'm a stakeholder, and I could be, by the way, an external partner. I'm going to, for right now, save the work. Submit a save. You'll see here a message saying I saved it. I could do more work and come back and update any data. But for time purposes, let's say I'm an appraiser, and I'm an appraiser. I didn't finish the sentence on the offline mode. The benefit of the offline mode is you could imagine people like caseworkers or appraisers. And this appraiser who opened this case goes in New York, and he notices that where Tina, she lives on a mountain and there's no internet access. Offline mode means I'll get the information on my inbox. It's persisted in my mobile device. So if I go on site and I'm disconnected, I could do updates, and when I'm back, when the internet's available, it will sync up with my main server for me. So this is an option we offer. So back to the use case, continuing the journey. The appraiser now checks the house. He's happy with it. And we have a whole array of activities I could do from a workflow task. These are all out of the box. Our subject, again, I don't want to get deep into what we bring from a workflow, but all I want to say is this human workflow task is completed. The moment I declare it's completed, it's going to march and continue through the process. And in fact, let me do something here. I hope I'll catch it. I meant it to show something that I forgot to do, but let's refresh. I missed it. Sorry about that. I may show us a little later. So what we will see here is the appraiser. If you remember visually, I was here. The appraiser did his work, and now the process marched through and did a bunch of steps. I'm going to touch on a few of them just to highlight additional capabilities that we leverage in this solution. And I'll come back in a moment to something else. But what I want to first mention is, behind the scenes, we ran a step. This step could update some backend systems, do integration. It invoked a service, basically. You will notice here a couple of steps, and the visual icon looks like a table. This tells me when this process was defined, somebody created what we call a business rule and dragged it and dropped it, and this business rule allows me to calculate the score. Basically, I'm going to look at the information about Tina's credit, and I'm going to look at a few other handful of information, not a lot, like the house score, and I want to try to automatically decide, is Tina worth even going further and approving the loan, which means I'm going to take this path, or do I want to decline and say, sorry, Tina, we really can't help you, sorry. The second step, you'll notice here another rule, but we made the rule here take advantage of another capability, and it is basically a machine. It's a machine learning based rule using prediction, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment. But let me just give us a little visual on that. In fact, I'm going to shift back to our development environment where I was earlier, and just want to show this is the step. And in fact, as a developer, I go to the rule development perspective, we have a single development environment where you'll see a bunch of rules and the decision table for the credit calculation. So this is the step. We see it visually. I basically build it as a rule, and actually I have it open. So this is a decision rule. Just a few words. For those of us who are not familiar with rules engine or inferencing engine, the concept of rules is as old as computerdom. Every one of us who programmed have built if then else. If then else is a business rule. But the discipline of rules have really matured, where there are businesses that have built rules engine. They call them inferencing engine. At the end of the day, they let you do all kinds of rules, if then else. But you can do more things than just code them in Java. You could use visual metaphors like this is a table, or you could use a decision tree. I should have done decision tree. It's really cool. But if you think of this decision table, it's a bunch, each line is an if then else. So this says if the credit balance for Tina, that's line number 1, is less than 1,000, and her credit limit is between 1,000 and 5,000, and she have missed payments more than 5 times, this is the credit score I'm going to give her. Very simple. Another one. And few benefits. I could extricate it. I just want to leave us with the thought that we bring a rules engine out of the table. You could use these. You're not forced to use them, but it offers you benefits. Is I could reuse these rules. This rule is available as a service. I could expose it as an API. I could reuse it. And maybe one of the biggest benefits for using these rules is I could let business users, the non-technician, and once I deploy this user, and by the way, this is configured here for me as a developer, but once I deploy it, a business user through a browser will see this table. He's not going to see all this stuff around it, which is technical, but they could simply add, modify, change variables here, and hot deploy it. So business users can change it without having to knock on my door and say, Sammy, we changed, the state changed the rules of approval, please change it, and I'm going to say stand in line by IT. Another little manifestation of bimodal. Let me show us the other one. If you remember, there's another rule here that we called it intelligent risk assessment, and I just want to show it visually. We chose to implement it here in another little simple rule table, but we could have simply used what we call our artificial intelligence capability. So for those new to it, let me make another pause here, another interrupt, and introduce one of the latest additions or capabilities. And it started by partnering with a company a couple of years ago, then Software AG acquired them. And even in this version, we've done some integration. But what is it? It's a technology, for those of you who would like to research it. The name of it is called Zemantis. That's just the name of the product. But I could, with Zemantis, build I could build statistical models to use them for, so it's basically AI-based artificial intelligence. The difference between it when you use AI-based, it's a decision engine, just like the decision engine that is running the rule behind the scenes. The difference is the decision engine that will execute this is rules-based. Somebody has to come in and put these if then else. However, I could use the Zemantis, which is a decisions engine, where I don't have to write if then else. It's based on machine learning. And here's our claim to fame. With Zemantis, you could build any statistical model to suit your problem, and there are many of them. The one we used here actually is using simple neural network. And then you could use any tool of choice. The tools that normally data scientists, that's a nickname they're called by, most of them are going to use open languages like R or Python, or often if they work for a large company, they may have statistical tools like SAS or IBM's or IBM's SPSS. Our claim is you could use a statistical model to learn using any of these tools. Then in no time, as in minutes, we can take this rule and generate from it what's called a PMML. PMML, think of it as it's an open standard. It's really an XML document that represents that statistical model, and then you can deploy it into our engine. And our engine, rules engine, by the way, you could deploy it as a SaaS model, so it could be remote on the cloud, which is what is running right now, or it could be running on your premise. And at the end of the day, it's a service, and you could feed it historical data and learn norms. So you could connect it to your big data, show it norm, and then based on that, it'll come back. And what I want to leave us with the idea is, if I want to have a business rule, a decision table based on 5 or 6 or 10 data elements, that's fine. I could use a decision tree or a table. But if I want to make an assessment of risk, and it could be based on dozens or hundreds of data elements, this if then else or decision trees become crazy. It's difficult. So that's a perfect place to let the tool learn the various parameters. So I want to learn about Sammy's hobbies, what kind of apartment they live in, and I'll actually show it to us here. The rules engine is, so if I open this table, and just to let you know, what we've done here is we look for certain bands, and within these bands, if it's questionable, it's gray, I basically invoke a service in Zemantis. And this, so this is, I'm combining a decision table to call an AI that's doing real-time scoring and comes back, and Zemantis basically will make a decision to say, I want to refer him or accept him. And if I open the decision table that we're using, actually I could run it from here and literally I'll be executing it. Let's just, for right now, I'm going to skip for time purposes, but I just want to now go back to the big picture. Behind the scenes, if you remember, we passed through, we calculated the store. Tina, and I'm sorry about it, your credit hasn't been the greatest. So when we invoked that AI service, and these AI services can help us predict, we can use them in other cases to make recommendations for customers. We've used this, by the way, in retail to make recommendations based on the customer location and based on his history, combining them to recommend maybe discounts for them and special products. In this case, what we're using it is to do next best action, or MBA. So the rules engine, the AI rule, basically the scoring, and came back and will say, I will automatically accept her, which goes in, does some calculations, determine the terms, sends a message, and he's done, or decline her. So in this case, if I go back into our running process, you could see, if you remember, Tina, in her case, she was referred. That means it went for a human being. And let's close this. Just before I close it, so unfortunately, Tina, we ended up in having to send you to another human being that is basically an underwriter that has to do his final touch and bless you or say, we're sorry. One thing I missed doing in the demo, I should have stopped it. You have the ability on the fly to put, as a developer, so I could at runtime take any step in the process, click on it, and if I click on it, you will notice in this step, you will see a petite little what looks like a pen icon. And what this means is, as this process runs, in real time, it will stop and pause. This is a capability we added a year ago, and we refer to it as dynamic process orchestration. The idea is my process at a high level has a structure. Yeah, it could turn left and right as we saw, but I can dynamically, on the fly, even as a developer, as a user, I could cause it to stop. And I meant for it to stop here to show some expedited process. I don't have anything here interesting to insert, but if I continue running it, it'll stop and you will see it pause. And I could, on the fly, click a button and I could say, skip a step on the fly. Or I could say, inject a process. And forgive me, I meant to show it, but I should have done it here because there's some cool expedite process I wanted to inject. But on the fly, I could handpick a process, inject it here visually as a business user. It'll inject it, it'll execute it, and it's also being monitored with all the KPIs that are out of the box. And from here, I can drill down into it. So for demo's sake, I just wanted to reference it, and I'm sorry I totally missed it. But I want to also leave you with this thought. I highlighted that you could, on the fly, skip, inject processes. I can, on the fly, build a service behind the scenes, behind any one of these steps, and based on the parameters of my loan, I could, on the fly, give birth and create a whole new process. Think dynamicism. Think a live process that gives birth to a whole new process without even visually drawing it out and inject it in any one of these steps, or skip a step within my process all dynamically. In fact, I'm working with a partner, a very respectable partner, an SI, that is currently building a whole methodology around what they call living process, and leveraging capabilities like dynamically on the fly based on AI capabilities and based on information unique to the customer. I could create and birth living processes to achieve best outcome. So, sorry, a little long sentence. I didn't get to show it to you. And by the way, if any of us on the call are interested in this, I will be more than delighted to do a follow-up and dig deeper into it. But this is what we call dynamic process orchestration. So let's continue with our last step in this. So you'll notice I reached here, and I am, I am really slow on time. I'm sorry, I'm really bad on time. Let's just close this one, and I'm gonna fly through it. Guys, I am maybe less than 2/3 of my journey. Let me show us one quick thing. Right now, I'm going to simply close it, but before closing it, I talked about chatbots. Chatbot, or what's called natural language processors, I think of it very much like Siri on my phone. I could say, Siri, take me to this place. We baked into our process, into our DBP platform, a chatbot, or what's called natural language processor, NLP, where with no coding, you could configure vocabulary and language where you could sense it, and you could, based on the request, invoke services. So I'm going to show you here. So I could say, how many loans approved today? And I could connect this if I want with, and you will see it coming back and telling me there's 38. I could say, show me rejected loans. And you could see a detail with a list of names that I could cut and paste. This is another feature referred to as chatbots. We baked it. It's available to you. You could do it without having to code it. It's all configuration through wizards. So let's go back again to where we were. This is the reviewer, and he has to put his last touches on Tina, and by default, we're going to approve her. Let's save my work, and let's say complete, and done. Let's refresh. And Tina, by the way, because I did the injection, it allows me to inject a process. I'm going to just say resume, just to continue. And you could see now everything is complete, and it ended. And in fact, if I look visually below, you could see I went through all the stages. If I refresh again, you're going to see the complete done. Emails is sent to Tina. Things like, Tina, you'll notice I have alarms, and these alarms could trigger a service automatically. By default, they send me an email, but it's telling me, Sammy, you've been taking too long. You've violated some SLA. These are injected. Just a few things I want to show, guys. I apologize. Charlie, I know we lost time early on with my browser. Any chance I could go for maybe 4 more minutes, or shall I cut it off here?
We'll take it out of the Q&A. We may do some follow-up on that, but you should do what you think you should be doing to make your final points.
Okay. I wanted to show us another channel using what we call streaming analytics, and I'll just enumerate a few things. I like to show another set of layers of intelligence, real-time dashboarding, dashboards that are out of the box, or custom dashboards. These are all, if you will, built around this scenario. I don't know if I'll get into customer journey mapping, but let me show you. I could be a customer. Let's go into Twitter. Show us another channel. And I have a fictitious Twitter account. We offer an option where, as events are happening inside my enterprise, an event, or from outside the enterprise, I could filter, correlate, tie it to history, and act on it in real time. We refer to it as streaming analytics. By the way, a capability that has won a lot of recognitions from analysts. And it's called actually Apama, and you configure it using the same environment. We simply used it to listen to social media, and it could be any social media. So we're listening to Twitter, and we're looking for people who opt into the application and listen to sentiment keywords. So watch here. I'm going to go and say, oops, sorry, Twitter again. And I'm going to just tweet. I'm going to say, in trouble, would like to get a fast loan. By the way, I could set it up so if Sammy, this person, or Luke, issues a number of tweets within 15 minutes and all of them indicate sentiment-wise he's really in a dire need for a loan, I could be listening to him and on the fly respond to him and say, we can help you. In this case, watch, I'm simply going to just tweet it, and based on this keywords, watch Luke's handle, his Twitter ID is Sammy Morcos. So when I tweet, watch this. On the fly, we initiated, you'll notice just moments ago, we launched a whole new process. Think of this as a whole new channel from my Omni channels that gives me information. And because Sammy has his phone number in, I could now give him a call and process it just as we did before. So this illustrates very skinny on streaming analytics. Let me just enumerate them, and I'm not going to demo them. We came prepared to show. We see customers also interested in what's called collaborative process modeling. If process is important, and if you have business analysts and marketing people who want to build their own solutions, and they could be stationed all around the world, and they want to log in, connect through social media, start drag and dropping and defining their models, this is an option where the analyst, the designer could document, design, capture, and then you could deploy the same process from here. We call it model to execute. And you'll notice here the same process, people collaborating through a browser on the design of this process. So you could see, so Sammy could subscribe to the process. I could follow it if anybody makes a change. I could do things like likes, attachments, and so on. I also want to say, think of everything we saw as a single process, a single journey of the customer, a whole topic. And I did want to show it to you. Actually, it's available here. But we're seeing a trend, and some customers, and Gartner as an analyst is big on it. I want to step back and model and map every journey a customer does, and determine things like what are each processes, the journey, and it's integrated with my dashboards, touch points, points of risk, if you will, point of truth. But you could model it and slowly start automating, and it's integrated with our. Think of it as a macro view of the customer and it's all about customer facing, optimizing our customer journeys. Customer journey mapping, I will not get into it, but that's a capability. If useful, customers could leverage it. I did not show us any dashboards. We have a number out of the box. You could see dashboards. Oops, not this one. Actually, clicked on the wrong one. But anytime a human being uses a process, you get dashboards out of the box, or you could build your own custom dashboards. And I'm not going to say much. These are real dashboards. They're updated in real time. I'll show us actually a custom dashboard. So this is one I customized, configured, and it shows me, so I could say, show me loans of type mortgage. You could see everything from here on filter. It tells me I have 26 loans of mortgage. 6 are imperfect. This is imperfect is based on SLA violations, or a mortgage took longer, or something is wrong with it, and it shows me that represents 23%, this much dollar amount, and I could see the filtering goes down. A whole story around these analytics can be built that we're proud of. But with this in mind, Charlie, I'm going to stop, and I apologize. I've passed my time by a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Sammy. We appreciate the extensiveness of this demonstration, and we're not going to go through a lot of questions. There are a number of them, and we promise you that Sammy is going to follow up with you because there's a lot under the hood here, and the questions, a lot of the questions have to do with what's under the hood. For example, when it comes to robotics process automation, or RPA, do we need integration capabilities, i.e. webMethods integration server?
The short answer is no. You can, and you can make it a process as it's running. I could make it collaborate with the person at the desktop, but you can do it totally independently. Again, reinforcing what we said earlier, Charlie, is you can use individual modules standalone, or you could leverage them in a baked way to work with other components, as we saw in this demo.
All righty. Speaking of underhood, so we've addressed integration server. You called out Zementis. You repeatedly called out Agile apps. Is there any ARIS in this particular solution demo?
I'm sorry, you said any ARIS?
Yes, ARIS.
Yeah, so the last thing I touched on briefly was built with ARIS. And if you look towards the left, the category of capabilities, these with basically transformation. And I highlighted one feature, which is the collaborative process modeling using a browser. that was using ARIS.
All right, so that's the response. Let's do one more question, and again, I know there are questions we're not able to get to, and some are not point questions, some are broad questions, and that's why we're going to ask Sammy to individually follow up on them. But going back to that, right at the end, the demo around Twitter and other social media, does the case management support mobile? I think perhaps you've already said that, but other channels like Twitter?
Yeah, so case management, anything you built with case management is available to you as a mobile. Basically, it's using HTML5 behind the scenes. And if I go back to the demo, all I need to do is change the link, and it will adjust to the size of my device. And it's not a native mobile app in mobile. You don't need to download it. It's just your mobile app, point to a device, and it'll adjust the information to it. It's responsive, and so it is totally mobile enabled, yes. Out of the box, there is no special coding.
Thank you. And once again, thank you, Sammy Marcos, for this entire presentation. Very, very interesting, very, very representative of what happens or could happen within the digital business platform. We will be having additional demos every week for the next 60 days, and the schedule will probably reflect the same cadence as we move past that. So you're invited to join us next week. We'll be looking at AI in terms of looking at transformation IT for smarter manufacturing. This will be a more verticalized presentation, speaking of use cases. And as you can see, moving along, there's going to be a number of other very interesting and very immediate interest topics. So again, Sammy, thank you. Thanks everyone for attending, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.